Okay, guys, just a quick recap for all of you since it is recording now. We have been discussing about the process from start till the end, and we begin with the question that navigation comes under UX or UI. And a lot of people have agreed that it comes under UX. A lot of people had confusion whether it's UI or UX, so they picked up UI. And then I gave you that analogy: if we are inviting somebody into our house, while planning for what to feed them, whether that part will come as UX or UI, and that clarified our confusion that navigation is a part of planning and is something which needs to be handed over to the UI designer as the brief, which allows them to develop design interfaces which further can be sent to the developer team, or a product manager stays there on top of you know your UX researcher. Then you have UX designer, and then you have UI designer, and you have front end developer, you have back end developer, and the product manager is usually an experienced person who have seen product cycles in their lifespan multiple times, and they not just are familiar with the pipeline in which the product processes from the beginning to the end, but also they understand how to manage the feedback loops. And this is something new I am adding here since it is recording. Uh, for a product manager, it is very important that they um, churn out a feedback loop, uh, churn out implementable solutions or actionable steps from the feedback loop, because at one cycle uh, it's not actually uh, feasible to expect something very useful to come as a solution and be successful. So when we create an MVP, essentially what we are also doing is allowing the whole team to think about how more value can be added to it, and that can happen based on the user's feedback. Okay, so now that brings me to that clear bifurcation where the UX designer's role ends and UI designer's role start. So we are the advocates for the users, correct? So we start by understanding their needs. Users are emotional, so we also need to be emotionally intelligent and empathetic enough to get into their shoes and try to look things from their perspective, right? So that is again something is important. And then I talked about that UX researchers can be different than UX designers. Somebody who excels at implementing research methods can go for completely research based role, and that means they will not just have to conduct the market survey or the primary and secondary research, but also indulge into the user research part, which includes creating the stakeholder maps, creating user personas, creating empathy maps, creating um, user scenarios, right? And then based on the user scenarios, creating user journey maps, correct? So after all these things are done, you will have a better understanding of users. And during this entire process, any place where you think that the categorization is wild and you need to sort them out, you do affinity mapping, okay, where you can cluster things up. Similar sort of things can be clustered together. So that is the affinity map within this process. Anytime you can do that, right? Now, after that comes the phase where you ideate. You have understood the user's problem, you have understood the market, you have competition also clear in your mind, and you understand whether it's a new problem or an existing problem. If it is an existing problem, why others are not able to solve it? If it is a new problem, why nobody has tried to look at it? Is it something which popped up recently because of some changes in the technology, because of some changes in the ecosystem in which the user is living. If that is the case, then you try to factor in all these into your solution. And in the ideation phase, there are some methods. Uh, I hope we have had more time to explore those methods, but within the limited interactions we had, I think the ideation part I couldn't cover much. Uh, we did ideate, but purely in a very organic form. We did not methodologically tried ideating stuff in the classroom. And there are some techniques such as uh, six thinking hats and crazy eight. So all those things are ideation strategies, methods. And I'm sure as a um, student of design research, you have been already uh, taught about these things. So it's pretty much same. Nothing changes here. You have some problems and you want to solve that problem by impersonating the user and the user personas, or you put yourself in those situations and think from different perspectives, different angles, and come up with multiple solutions. Then you further navigate those solutions uh, and see if that can really help solve the issue you are trying to fix or not. Now post that, the solution is clear in your head. You are working for a client, you share that solution with the client, the idea is shared, but how the client is going to be assured that this idea is going to work? You need to give them something in the form of a product or a service or a system. Now these three can be either digital or physical, correct? Now whatever it is, it has to have an interface which allows user to interact with it, right? So that interface needs to be designed, and some planning has to be done in order to pass on the brief to the UI designer who will design the interface. The information architecture is a very vital step. It's sort of bridges the gap between the UX strategies, your ideation, and takes you to something which actually can be used, right? So you can think of it at the intersection of UX and UI. So information architecture comprises of four things. I told you that you may not need to always create all those four things. You can just create two, three, or whatever is applicable in your case, right? You have sitemaps, you have task flows, you have user flows, and you have a navigation system. Okay. Now, after this, how do you start the UI? We have talked a lot about the UX. How do we start with the UI? What is the first thing we think when we start creating the user interface? Can somebody, throw some light at it? Anybody is fine. Tell me, what do you think?
Information architecture.
So that is already done. UX part is okay. How do we start with the UI?
So we select where we have to, for which device we need to make. So we need to select the correct size frame.
Okay. So that means we start building up the screen.
No, design system which you told that.
Yeah, that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
So once we have the information architecture, then we move to the UI part and we develop the design system, right? Now, design system essentially helps us in imagining not just the aesthetical aspect of how the product or the system or whatever we are designing is going to look, but also the functional aspect of it, the micro interactions, how the buttons are going to behave, how the components are going to work. So all those things, the reusable things, something which is going to be reused at multiple locations in our product, we create a library of that and we call it a design system. Then we test that design system by creating some sample screens. Then we take it to the client and then tell them, see, this is how we are envisioning your application, right? If it's a physical space we are designing, then what do? We create a 3D simulation of the same and we show it to the client. We don't start right away developing that entire thing, right? And then wait for client's reaction. You know, we show them this is how it is going to turn out, correct? And if you agree, then fine. Otherwise, you tell us how we can improve it better suited for your requirements. Always remember, you don't have to you cannot afford to forget the user and the client. A good designer includes their clients in the process, but not so much that the client is taking all the decisions. You have to help them take the decisions. You have to be the salesperson also. है ना? And I have noticed it very often, and especially when the newcomers interact with the clients, they take them as fools and they don't respect their design choices or their suggestions. They straight away would say that I am trained in this field, so what I am saying is right. But we tend to forget that a client is also a user for me, for our project. So the good part would be to develop a knack of always following a user-centered, approach, even while dealing with the clients. You try to understand from their perspective, why are they making such choices? Even if they look so horrible, what's the catch? मतलब ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता ना कि उसको हम पसंद नहीं है इसलिए हमारा काम खराब करने के लिए वो ऐसा बोल रहा है. काम तो उसी का है. तो वो जो चॉइसेस ले रहा है उसको समझने की कोशिश करो. मे बी उसने किसी कॉम्पिटिटर को देखा होगा वैसा करते हुए. हो सकता है. अब मैं एग्जांपल देता हूँ. मैंने ना कंट्रोल वॉल्व इंडस्ट्री में बहुत काम किया इनिशियल डेज में. अब ये बड़ा मैकेनिकल सा प्रोडक्ट होता है और हमारा बैकग्राउंड था फैशन का और ग्राफिक डिजाइन का. तो हमारी जो सेंसिबिलिटी थी वो बहुत ही रिफाइंड थी, बहुत ही पॉलिश थी और एक अलग ही नीश मार्केट के लिए थी. और ये जो कंट्रोल वॉल्व इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स की एस्थेटिक्स थी वो काफी मैन्युफैक्चर ओरिएंटेड था, है ना. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ओरिएंटेड था. इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर्स होते हैं ना, मतलब अलग अलग फील्ड के इंजीनियर्स, उस तरह के लोगों के पास जा रहा था हमारा जो भी हम ग्राफिक डेवलप कर रहे थे. उसके ब्राउजर्स, उसके वेबसाइट्स, उसके एग्जीबिशन डिजाइन, उसका लोगो, तो उनको समझाना बड़ा डिफिकल्ट हो रहा था. और हमारे अंदर कहीं ना एक वो रिजिडिटी थी कि हम डिजाइनर है, हम बेहतर जानते. पर ये विजडम आगे चल के बहुत दिन के बाद समझ में आया कि हम तो उनके एंगल से देख ही नहीं पा रहे. बिजनेस उनका है, वो जिस तरह के लोगों के साथ डील करते हैं उनको तो हमारा जो फाइंड रिफाइंड सॉल्यूशन है वो तो समझ में नहीं आएगा, है ना. तो इस वजह से फिर बहुत दिन के बाद समझ में आया. काम कर रहे हैं ना हम. बिंदु इज प्रोटेक्टिंग मी. आज सो जा. हाँ. तो हाँ हाँ, आई वॉज टॉकिंग अबाउट यूजर सेंटर्ड मेथड अप्रोच. सो जब आप डिजाइनर्स के साथ डील करते हैं तो आपको यूजर सेंटर्ड अप्रोच छोड़ना नहीं है कभी भी, है ना. क्लाइंट्स के साथ भी. Now comes the UI part. We have developed the design system and we have gotten it approved from the client. After the design system is ready, we move to developing the screens. Now for the screens, do we develop all the screens? No. We only pick out the user flows which constructs our minimum viable product. That's the first goal. And for the jury also, this is exactly what is expected from you. You focus on minimum viable product Pick out at least 2-3 good user flows and develop those screens and then prototype. After that, if the time is left, or let's say that your ambition is not satisfied, you add some of the features which are really important and creates a distinction in the product or the service or the system you are designing in context to the competitors you are dealing with. Now after this, let's say that you have done this much, okay, then you focus on the micro interaction. Now this level is the functional part where logic is your top priority. Now if you have finished till this level, then you start adding those gifs elements. The buttons should roll out and some emojis are popping up and all those beautification and animations. Those micro interactions comes after that. Now you are not trained for those things in the field of UX design, UI design. There are people who only focus on the motion design. That is also a career role. ठीक है, पर उसके लिए हो सकता है कुछ लोग की बैकग्राउंड हो पहले से जिन्होंने मोशन ग्राफिक्स करा हो अपने ग्रेजुएशन में. If they want to play with that, be my guest, do that. But after doing these things, these are the important parts. Once this entire thing is done, you create a document which captures all the processes you have gone through, and you create a one pager, a scroll, which can be put on your portfolio, whether you are doing it on Behance or you are developing your own website, or that one pager, one scroll, which can be arranged based on your storytelling skills. You can refer to some of the good UX design projects on Behance, on Adobe Portfolio, and otherwise also. And then take a reference from there and then learn about how they have told the story. It's not about telling them that I have gone through entire process. It's about showing your entire project as case studies. Okay, there is a case and you have taken certain steps. How you have arrived at those logical conclusions, to back that up, you provide some evidence also of the process that can be shown by user journey map, that can be shown by user journey map, that can be shown by some of the task flows you have created, right? So your end deliverables are the documentation, your prototype, and a one pager. The content of the one pager can be arranged in a A1 size sheet which can be printed and shown to the jury. The same can be arranged in a long scroll and be featured on your portfolios. But these are the deliverables. Okay, I'll send you the recording hereafter in the group, but I'll repeat it again. हाँ बर्थडे मैं कर इधर आओ, देखो कौन कौन है. हेलो बोल दो सब. ये कौन है बोल दो.
हाय हाय
कौन है ये? सब भैया
कौन है?
दीदी लोग हैं तुम्हारे, सब पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं अभी.
आपका नाम क्या है?
नाम बता दो. नाम बता
अरे
दो. नाम पूछ रहे हैं.
मेरा नाम अभिलाषा, आपका क्या है?
आवृत्ति नाम है. वो कलर कर रही है अभी आँख. ठीक है. हाँ, सो देखो, पहले पहला पहला सबसे मेजर होगा डॉक्यूमेंटेशन। सो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन A4 साइज में करना लैंडस्केप में, ताकि हैंडी रहे। डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करते समय जो मैप्स वैप्स डालोगे ना उसमें, फ्लो चार्ट वगैरह, उसको इस तरह से ऑप्टिमाइज करना कि मैक्सिमम विजिबिलिटी हो। देखो क्या किया इसने, पूरा पेंट कर दिया। हाँ, अच्छा, डॉक्यूमेंटेशन जब हो गया हमारा, सॉफ्ट कॉपी में बना के रखना प्रेजेंट करने के लिए। तो ऐसे डिजाइन करना कि वो प्रेजेंटेशन जैसा लगे। जो रिसर्च वाला पार्ट है ना, जो कोर रिसर्च है, जो सेकेंडरी रिसर्च है, प्राइमरी रिसर्च है, आपने किया है, उसका A4 साइज में डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होगा पोर्ट्रेट में, और प्रेजेंटेशन जो बनेगा वो लैंडस्केप में बनेगा। A4 साइज में ही रखना, वो प्रेजेंट भी हो जाएगा, तुम्हारा दोनों काम हो जाएगा। और उसके बाद आपको एक 1 पेजर बनाना है। 1 पेजर जो है वो 2 फॉर्मेट में बनेगा, एक A1 साइज के एस्पेक्ट रेशियो में, और एक कंटिन्यूअस स्क्रॉल के कितना भी लंबा हो सकता है वो बेसिकली। उसमें आप 1920 बाय 1080 करके लोगे तो 1920 विड्थ रहेगा, और 1080 जो है वो लंबा होता चला जाएगा, जितना लंबा करना है उसको लंबा करो, कोई बात। ठीक है, बस इतना करना है। इज देयर एनी कंफ्यूजन, एनी क्वेश्चन? And tomorrow you will have to present for 5 minutes. What you do in that 5 minutes, that is totally up to you. I need the order in which you will be presenting things tomorrow by 3 p.m. Send it in the WhatsApp group, and when we meet tomorrow, we will not talk anything but start with the presentation. ठीक है, 5 5 मिनट है, 5 मिनट्स में अपना आप रिहर्स भी करके आ सकते हो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। इफ यू वांट टू शो सम स्लाइड्स, दैट इज आल्सो फाइन। बस मुझे देखना है कि कल तुम 5 मिनट क्या करते हो। ठीक है, अग्रीड? कोई
Yes, sir.
क्वेश्चन, कुछ पूछना है?
So regarding the dimensions of the one pager,
हाँ, टेल मी, योर वॉइस इज नॉट
can
कमिंग।
you repeat the dimension of the one pager?
हाँ,
कौन बोल रहा है
सो कौन बोल रहा है, पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं ना, जाओ मूवमेंट का। सो फॉर इन दैट 1 पेजर ना, वी नीड टू use the storytelling method. And the storytelling, see, any project we do, what's the purpose of the project? To solve a problem for whose benefit? For the user's benefit. So we can start with a case study that following problems are having following problems, and this is the solution we have thought of, and this is what we have developed for them. Now this has to be told in a storytelling form. ठीक है, for reference you
Yes,
can,
sir.
for reference you can visit the portfolio aggregator websites, and then look for some projects. If I find some, I'll share it on the group also, and which I'll do anyway. hmm. But not tomorrow. First I want to see it from you guys, what you have to offer in 5 minutes. ठीक है, all right, so that would be all for the day, guys. I'm also not feeling